Okay, we are back. We had a very abrupt stream on Tuesday, and I was trying to actually set the equipment up somewhere else because I had visitors unexpectedly, so I was going to try to get back on, but I could not find a place in the house that worked as much. So the internet's not great. It's the only place I can really shoot, and it's not going to work when there are a lot of people in the house, so I came on early today so I would avoid that. It should not happen today. But it does bring me to a topic I do want to talk about, which is why we need so much space. You know, why we can't function like we used to. Because, you know, everyone's like, oh no, you can go ahead and finish. We're just staying here, it's no big deal. And when everyone's operating in a different frequency, you're going to find you have a really hard time being around people a lot. Everyone needs a lot of space, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Everyone needs a lot of space. Everyone needs a lot of room because your energy field is expanding out. Especially for me, when I'm doing streams, I'm expanding out so far. I really need to be in a house by myself or in a larger house where I could kind of section off. If I could get the internet in the room I sleep in, it would probably work. But because I have to be in a certain place right in the middle, there's a part of our journey where we realize we just can't be huddled up around people. You know, humans are always huddled up around everybody. You know, we didn't need space because we're always trying to grab we talked a little bit about this last time. It's kind of humans will call it energy vampires, but to me that makes it sound more predatory. And it's not intentional. We just try to fill the lack of soul light we have with everything else, and that includes other people, right? So we're going to be grabbing onto everything around us. That's why we gravitate toward people. And there'll be a lot of people that will say, well, I'm an introvert, I don't like to be around people. I don't get my energy from people. So there's a human spin on that. Well, they'll say, oh, I don't get my energy from that. But you're going to find you're going to get energy from outside stuff. You know, if it's not people 100%, though I really don't so much believe in the extrovert introvert. I feel like it's like anything else. You're going to dip in and out as your human plan is designed to. You're not going to be just one thing, or in one situation one thing. One aspect of you is not just one thing. You're going to have a lot of different, you're not just one aspect of yourself. I've seen a lot of people when I talk about different aspects or even talk about anything metaphysical, they'll try to bring it down to something they can relate it to, which is fine because it's just something to relate to. But they try to relate it back to like one of the personality tests about introverts and extroverts and how people relate. And it's beyond that. That's just a human way that we're trying to bridge a gap why people are a certain way. But it's not that people are a certain way. Their aspects are a certain way. Our aspects are all a little bit different. I'm going to use the word tolerate other people. Like if you were an introvert, you would say you tolerate people, right? You might not like it, but you kind of tolerate it. I would also say you have a stronger galactic pull, right? I would probably put it a different way. You're more into your galactic aspects than you are when you're in your soul aspects, right? Because galactics don't really care so much about humans or humanity in general. They don't really have a dog in the race to say it doesn't matter to them. They lack that compassion. When you're in those aspects, you're going to realize you lack compassion. And well, let me rephrase that. You're going to feel like you lack compassion, but you really don't lack compassion. It's just that aspect of you is trying to detach you from human ties. So you're going to feel like you don't have the same compassion because it comes from a different place. You care very deeply, but you care from a soul place. But when you're trying to detach from the human stuff, a lot of times your galactic aspects help you do that. You know, so when you're trying to do that detaching phase, call in galactic aspects because they're going to help you detach. They help you let go of things because they don't have that same attachment. They don't have the same feelings toward it. So when you're in those phases, you're going to find you're going to bring in your galactic phases a lot quicker, and your galactic aspects are going to come through because you are not kind of held back anymore with the attachment to something. So what someone would say is an introvert, I would say is a galactic because you have to look at it from a different perspective. But it is a human way to note, hey, everyone's a little different. This person does it one way, this person does it the other way. But it's just a different aspect you're flashing. But humans are always going to be getting something from the outside. I mean, that's how they live. That's how we used to live. When you're in your human aspect, when you're controlled by your human aspect, when that's what's making the choices for you, you're going to find that you're going to be very drawn to outside stuff. Now, in the beginning, you're drawn to outside metaphysical stuff when you're starting your journey, right? Because it kind of gets you to open up to other things. When you're really in your human stuff, you're drawn to the human stuff. And that's what you're kind of branching out for. That's what you're trying to kind of grab onto. The human stuff to kind of fill things out. That's why, even no matter if you're a forever introvert, eventually you're going to go into a different phase and a different aspect. It's just, we're going to call it something different because I'm going to see it a different way. When you're operating from a higher consciousness perception, you're going to see everything a different way, but it's still a way to bridge the gap that, hey, everyone's a little different. So even when you look at a lot of the human stuff and we start to decode, and I think that's what I called this one. I don't remember. I think it is. When you start decoding your matrix, you're almost looking at the human stuff and turning it around and saying, what does this really mean? I mean, we know the human stuff's not real and we know the human stuff's not true. Now, in another way, none of the higher stuff's true. None of the higher stuff's real either. And truth is going to change because it's just a prettier illusion. I remember I had someone ask me that once. Because we were talking about different realms, and it's just out. We were just out. I think it was out at a bar, and now we were talking about this. You can talk about this stuff everywhere. Everyone thinks it's a certain crowd that wants to talk about metaphysical or what someone would say really deep stuff, but it's not. It's everybody. And we were talking about it, and it was like, well, if you live in that area of town, is that an illusion too, right? Is it only illusion if it's shitty? It's like, no, it's still an illusion. It's just a prettier illusion. Higher dimensional realities are no more real, seriously, than human realities are. Technically, it's just a prettier illusion. You're transmitting something else that's prettier. It's different. It's lighter. You don't get bogged down on the stuff that doesn't matter. And the human stuff really won't matter anymore. So when you're in different phases, you're going to find you're going to be either really drawn to metaphysical stuff. You might be drawn to people, but look at the people you're drawn to and look at the people you're no longer drawn to. And I think this is what I was talking about last week. I don't remember. Like I said, I was hoping to get back online and finish it. And because I just started, I didn't even save it because I wasn't far enough in to really keep it on the channel. But I think that's what I was talking about. But anyway, it just goes back to what I was trying to start off with, but I kind of went around the barn again. You're going to find you just need a lot of space. And you're going to find that you might feel cold to people. I know I seem kind of cold and aloof to a lot of people. And it's not that you don't care. You just don't care on a human level anymore. And humans expect a lot of emotion. That's how you show you care. When you're in your human aspect, when you're dealing with someone in their human aspect, they want to see emotion. That's what they're trained to see. I want to see a tear. I want to see you wanting to be near me. I want to see some kind of outside thing that shows me that you care about this thing, or you're grieving this thing, or whatever it is, whatever situation you're in. Humans want to see the outside emotion. That's what shows them that you are all in it, in a sense, right? That's just what humans want to see. So when they don't see that, they're going to put you in a different category. They're going to say you're cold, you don't have any emotions, you don't care, you're not nostalgic, you're not. Oh, I can't think of the word because I'm so not that anymore. The word leaves me. Sentimental. I have no sentimental value for anything anymore. And my parents never liked the fact that I don't have any sentimental value. But it's not so much I don't have sentimental value. To me, it's a different life that I don't live anymore. It's like looking at someone else's shit. It doesn't have any, I don't have an attachment to it anymore because it's not mine. It doesn't have the same pull because when you start moving in and out of different consciousness levels and you are transcending the human experience, there's nothing left for you to look at the human experience anymore. You don't care about it. You don't have that sense of sentimental pull to anything. It doesn't matter. So you're going to come off to a lot of people colder. And it can be very misconstrued. I know I am very misconstrued with that a lot of times because I just don't have that anymore. But it doesn't mean you don't care. And so when you're in those phases and you're not showing that, and you really, I'm like, sometimes you'll feel like, okay, I might need to shed a tear here to show them that this matters to me. But it's not so much you're playing into it, that's what they require to know that you care. Sometimes you're gonna have to bring those emotions out because a human that you're trying to get through to about something might need to see that. You don't need to do it. Now, in a way, that's going to be true and not true because if you can bring any emotion up, you need to clear it from the body. But you could have probably cleared it energetically and not have that emotional burst in such an extreme. But sometimes you might feel like someone might need to see you cry to understand that you do care about that. And you'll know when that's going to happen. You know when you feel like this person's going to need to see it this way. This person's going to need to see me super upset about it. You know, I'm not going to be able to get through to them if that's what you're trying to do. So I say that, I just want to kind of mention that because you're going to get pegged as being very not emotional anymore. Especially if you were super emotional and now you're super detached. And there's and there's a zillion reasons for it, but you can also look at, you don't see things the same way. You don't see human tragedies the same way. You understand why they're occurring that way. You understand why people are coming in and out of your life. You understand why when you look at someone else's life, someone's coming in and out of it. And you understand why someone's passed on. And you understand why they had to. And you understand how it was going to hold the person back from what they had to do next. You understand the higher plan on why it has to go down that way. Even if you don't understand your own higher plan on why it has to go down that way. And we're going to get into that in a little bit later. But even if you don't understand why yours is going down that way, sometimes it's easier to look at somebody else's and see it because you don't have the attachment to it. The attachment to it, the emotion around it, blinds you to what's going on. So you can look at someone else and see it very clearly. You know, it used to be the old trope in our human realities when someone would be doing something and you can so clearly see that it's a shit show, but the other person can't see it. They can have every red flag hitting them in the face, but they can't see it. They're looking at it like, what do you mean? This shit's fine. What are you talking about? And you're looking at it like, oh my God, you're watching a totally different movie than I'm watching because this is like a horror movie and you think you're in a romantic comedy and that's not what this is because you don't have the emotion around it. And the same thing starts to happen when you start looking at your own stuff. But you always have to clear the emotion first. And that's the big mistake we'll make in the beginning. You know, because we want to enter into the reality to show I can do it better. Because you still have a lot of ego in that. Anytime you want to go back into something because you want to do it different, you want to do it better, you know you can do it a different way, you can be more conscious in the moment, your ego is going to be driving you to re-enter in before you're ready. If you have any emotion around it at all, you are not ready to enter back in. You have not given the reality time to reset. You haven't given the reality time to upgrade. You can say it that way. You have not given the reality time to go from one frequency to the other. You're not giving it the time because what's holding it in that old frequency is the fact that you still have emotion around it. If you clear the emotion, you allow the whole thing to breathe, in a sense. You give it the space it needs to reset. Humans do not like the reset phase. And when we're in it, we don't like the reset phase either because we don't want to give it time to reset. We want it to just all of a sudden be in a different frequency. But it takes time to reset. I think I told the story about when I came here to this new space. It took 3 or 4 months to kind of anchor in here and to clear my old reality out. Where I could actually go back and see the old reality as if I was visiting. And we'll talk about why we visit. I think I covered that once before. We kind of visit old places for a while to continue to clear anything in our cellular body that's still the frequency of that old place. But once we clear all that, we have no reason to go back there anymore. That's why in the beginning you go back a lot. You know, you graduate from college and you want to go back and visit a lot. Then all of a sudden you don't go anymore. You know, you move away from home, you might go back and visit a lot. Then all of a sudden you don't want to go anymore. You know, you have this sort of, you do it a lot, and then all of a sudden you just don't want to do it anymore because you've cleared it from the body. There's nothing pulling you back there anymore. There's nothing left to clear. But when you get to a new space, you need to get your frequency high to match the new space you're at. You're kind of working together with that space to clear all this old stuff out, and it can take a while. You know, it's not overnight. It took about 2 to 3 months for mine to kind of start to reset again, where I could then go back to the old one and feel how squished it was. But when I entered in quicker than that, because I did have to go back a little bit quicker than that because I had to get some stuff. But I was also showing myself how now it still feels like it fits, but in 2 months it won't feel like it fits anymore. And even in our human life, we saw this. You know, I can remember going away to college, and when I came back feeling like it didn't fit anymore. Home wasn't home anymore. Home didn't feel the same anymore. Because everyone say, oh, because you change. You know, and that's technically true. We do change. Our frequency changes. You know, we're able to shed a lot of different things that we've always had, because we've grown up in the same place our whole life. You know, we've always been in the same frequency. We haven't really had a chance yet to be in a different spot. Moving our body to different spots is critical. And if you're not in that phase of the journey yet, you're going to be at some point where you're going to be moving around. You're going to be exploring a little bit. I'm in that phase now. I'm not a big explorer when it came to moving to different places. So I had a lot of resistance to doing this part of my journey. I didn't really want to. I was like, I don't want to move around. I don't want to have to go to a different space. I want to be able to stay exactly where I am right now. You know, I don't want to have to do that. But that being said, it's a part of the journey you can't ignore, because eventually you're going to get pushed out of all of your realities once they no longer have a purpose, and they no longer support the journey you're in. And normally people go with it and places go with it because it's just not supported anymore. And when it's just not supported, it has to go. We just don't like that part. You know I talk a lot on the channel about things that are not great about the journey from our humans perspective, but I do feel like that helps and can assist in other people in a lot of different ways, and going on here and saying how it's all great. Because I've had people ask me that, why don't you just talk about how great everything is, or let's talk more about that. And I can talk more about that, but it's very hard for people to understand that unless they feel what that feels like, to feel the peace, the joy, that connection with yourself. If you're not there yet, or you've only experienced from here to there, it's hard to put that in words. You know, there are no words. There are no words that really describe that connection. You have to experience that. And sometimes getting through some of the muck, it helps you get to that place quicker, or a deeper place quicker. That's why we tend to focus more on looking at things, really looking at what's going on and not trying to sugarcoat it. The human sugarcoat, where we're going to look the other way, we're going to go the other way, when we're not going to continue to do the same things. It's funny because I was watching my, Outer Banks. It's this one show I watch. Most shows I watch are kind of, but this is kind of my, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, I was watching Outer Banks today, the new season of Outer Banks, and I was at the end because I binged it because I wanted to see what happened. And it was funny because toward the end I was getting so tired of it. I'm like, oh my God, these characters keep doing the same shit over and over and over again for 3 seasons. It is the same thing. And it got me to see, I'm like, it's very close to our human experiences. We just do the same thing over and over and over again. And because we're in the movie, in a sense, we're in our own movie, we're in our own story, we might not see the repetitiveness of it than when you're watching it. And watching it over and over and over again, these characters keep double-crossing each other. This dude keeps falling for the same stuff over and over and over again. This guy keeps doing the same thing to his daughter 15 times over. This one's shady over here. I don't even know what's going on with this one, but it's probably the same thing that he's always been doing. And it also goes to show, even in shows, people are going to go back to their same aspect. They're going to go back to their dominant aspect. When you're dealing with people out, not when you're watching a program, but when you're, program, that makes me sound like I'm 100. When you're watching a program on TV, when you're watching a show on TV, it's because you're detached from it. You can pick it out and see it and be like, oh my God. It reminds me of like an old school soap opera, where it's the same stuff over and over and over again. There was a trope where you could only show up on Mondays and Fridays, and you know what's going on because all the big stuff happened on the soaps on Mondays and Fridays. All the middle of the week was just filler stuff with characters nobody really cared about. But the big characters are going to be on Monday and Friday, and that's when the storyline would go forward. In the middle of the week, it was nothing going on. It would be a very slow pace of the week. We're not doing a lot here. We're going to be a lot slower. And there's a reason for that. one, that's how they would keep viewers back in the day, right? But for us, it's kind of the same thing. We kind of just pop in to start some of our storylines because we're always going to be hitting the same beat because we don't give anything time to reset. We don't give another aspect time to come out, and people are going to go back to their dominant aspect. And when you're dealing with someone with a human consciousness, their dominant aspect is a human consciousness aspect. That's their dominant aspect. That's what they're going to go back to. That's why they're going to always kind of go into the same thing again. Even when I'm watching this show and seeing some people trying to play out a different aspect, right? They're going to eventually revert back to the other one because that's their dominant one. People don't change that fast. You know, I'm going to be full of old man adages today. Leopards don't change their spots, right? And that's true. In a sense. In a way, that's not true. So we're going to dissect that one a little bit. It's true in the sense that their dominant aspect, until they can shift and raise their vibration to bring in other aspects and be able to hold them, you're going to keep seeing the same aspect. Everyone has the capability to anchor in a different aspect, and they have different aspects already, and you'll see glimmers of those aspects, right? But it's not the one when things get rough, you know, when they're dealing with something they don't want to deal with, when they're in a hard part of their clearing process, or they're just in a reality collapsing on them. You're not going to see those aspects out of their higher aspects. If it's not their dominant one, you're going to see them go back into their dominant aspect. And if it's a human aspect, which if they're operating in a human consciousness, that's their dominant aspect. If they haven't gone through awakening, if they haven't gone through any parts of their ascension, it's their dominant aspect. Even when we're in our awakening, it's still our dominant aspect in a sense, because we're clearing so much of it. You know, even when we're in different parts of our ascension process, I'll turn around one day and go, oh my God, I'm totally human. I'm totally in my human aspect today. And I feel so human today. I was going to stay away from everybody and just, I guess I'll sit down and watch the Outer Banks. I'm just going to go all into my human aspect today and see what's going on here. And really, you're just clearing more of it. But there's a reason why. You know, we kind of always have to expect a higher aspect from people, but we have to bring the higher aspect. If we don't bring a higher aspect of us, they're not going to match with anything else. Now, the question is not can they match it? The question is can they hold it? And that's when you get into bringing people into your life for realities and not just for a 5-minute conversation or a conversation I'll have with someone, you know, every 6 months, 2 hours. I've said it. I don't give a shit what they do in their life, what decisions they make. If they need assistance with something and they want to ask me a question, I'm happy to be there to help them. But I don't care about the choices they're making because they're not in my reality. You know, they're just kind of a passerby in a sense. They're just like another client in a way. They're no more special than anybody else. And we kind of get to that where we strip the hierarchy off people. If you still have a hierarchy on someone, you're playing in a human consciousness. You know, you're putting someone more special than somebody else. You're putting your family above somebody else. You're putting your spouse above somebody else. You're putting someone at a higher value system than other people. And you get to a certain place in your consciousness and your ascension process where all that has to go. You can't put someone over someone else. You know, you can't say, oh, and I did it for years, especially when I was in a lot of the twin flame matrices and the twin flame karma and clearing a lot of that. You let them get away with more. Anyone you're going to put on a pedestal, you're going to take more shit from that person because you've already set it up that that's what you're going to do. And that's the role they're playing. They're playing the role of almost like the anti-hero in a sense. They're showing you how much you'll put up with. And they're showing you how much you're going to sit there and say, okay, you know, I'm going to put up with this, I'm going to put up with that. At what point is it done? Where if anyone else had done this to me, I'd have kicked you to the curb 5 years ago or 5 months ago or 5 days ago, whatever it is for you. But because it's this person, I'm going to allow it. Because it's this person, I'm going to allow it. If you're in that, because it's this person, I'm going to allow it, we really got to look at why am I allowing it? Why is it this person? What do I feel like this person brings that makes them more special? Which we know when we say the words isn't true than another person. What is it? It's our story we have around that person. It has blippy to do with that person. It's nothing about that person. Now, once again, true and not true. Their energy signature is very similar to ours, or we wouldn't have been putting them on that pedestal in the first place, because they bring up all these feelings that other people can't get to. So that's one reason they're here, to show us those feelings. You know, you don't know what happiness feels like if you've never felt happiness. And these people can bring that stuff out in us. They can also bring up obsession and anger and judgment and jealousy and guilt. I mean, twin flames will bring up obsession energy quicker than anything. I mean, that will bring up so much obsession energy, you don't even realize how much you have. But we can't get caught in the trap. It's the human trap of attaching it to that person. That's the only one. You know, because we know, even our human knows, that's not the only one. You know, when you go through your first breakup at, I don't know, whatever, age 14, 15, you feel like, oh, that's the only one. Well, once you go through that enough times, you kind of realize deep down, you know, well, hell, that's not the only one. That's just ridiculous. Or that's not the only job I'm ever going to have. Once again, that's ridiculous. Even in our human experience, we're always ticking up our frequency. We're just not doing it the easy way, and we're not doing it consciously. We're going through the experiences to get there. We're trudging through the jungle with a machete. Actually, we're trudging through the jungle with a spoon. That might be a better way to put it. When we're really going to eventually have to get a machete to cut through that shit. But we're going to trudge through with a spoon and kind of keep digging our way through the jungle, and we're making progress, but we're not making the progress we need to make to really get anywhere, in a sense. But you can look back when you're, 45, and you want to look back when you were 15 and go, boy, yeah, I really thought that was the only one. And now, 30 years later, I realize, oh God, it's like buses. There's always somebody else. There's always another one. I thought I'd never get another job. Well, hell, there's always going to be another job. All these things we kind of, in our human experience, we will paint it like that's the only way it can go. Anytime you hear that phrase, either you say it or someone else says it, you are talking from your human consciousness. That's the only way it can be. That's how it is. There's no other way. There's no other way you can see at the moment, but trust me, there's a billion other ways. There's a billion other ways. And I was reading the book a few years ago. I read the book Tommyland by Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. And there was actually a line he had in that book, which was, if someone tells you there's only one way, that's bullshit. It's not. And I was like, very insightful from Tommy Lee, because that's true. There's never just one way. You just can't see the other ones yet. And even when you can see the other ones, they still might have that human flair to them. It still might not be aligned, and it's still got a human something going on. If you want something from it and your agenda's not pure, then there's something going on. So even when we're trying to look at a situation to kind of see, what do I do here? Where do I go from here? What's the right choice to make? I know this week I had a decision I could have made. And at first I felt like it seems completely aligned, right? These people want assistance on something, and I would consider myself that I could assist. And I think it was dreams. They wanted someone to call in about dreams, right? Show I listened to. And I'm like, oh, I consider myself, I don't know, say an expert, but the dream world, I definitely would say I'm I don't even know how to put it. But anyway, it is my domain. We can talk about, I always say, if you want to talk about your dreams, come sit next to me. Because we're going to dive into it. We're going to get into it and have some fun with our dream world. But every answer I got was, no, can't do it. You can't do it. You can't enter into that right now. And it was just so funny to look at it. And then I'm even like, oh, because my human wanted to do it so bad. I was like, oh, that's bullshit. I should be able to do that. That seems fine to me. I can do that. Even though I'm getting a hard no inside, I'm getting a no. I'm like, well, I'll just look outside then. So anytime I don't like the answer I get, I'll say, okay, I'll look outside for an answer. And I did my normal, okay, if I get a text by 9 o'clock, and it's maybe 8 o'clock when I ask it, if I get a text in the next hour, then that's a go. If it don't, it's a no. And don't ask anymore, because there's your external confrontation, because you didn't like your answer you just got. Because I got too much around it. I got too much, because if I'm not okay with the answer, it means I want something out of it. because I just heard a no and I want it to be a yes because I want to do it for a lot of different reasons, right? Sometimes and even when we get a yes, we got to see. There's so many different things we have to unravel. So when we start dissecting anything, we start dissecting our matrix, this is what we're talking about. It's not as quick and easy as it used to be. It's not just our human answer. If my answer is yes, and that brings up a lot of fear, and then I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do it. I got to look at that. Is it just fear? And then I have to do it, because that's usually one of my first go-tos. If I'm afraid, I got to do it. So at one point, you might be faced with a similar situation, and the answer is going to be yes. But it's not the human reason you think it is. Your answer is yes because you got too much fear around it. You got to bust through the fear. The reality still might not come in. I've tackled a reality a couple of times, a couple of different ways here, and the reality still has not come in yet. But every time I've tackled it and I proactively, consciously done something I knew was part of that equation to bring it in, it didn't bring it in. It just either cleared a fear I had of doing the reality, which is eventually going to bring it in, because fear is what blocks the reality. It clears something out of the way, where I can then look and say, okay, no, that's cleared out of the way. Let me look over here. What's going on over here? Now I get it. No, you can't do it because your agenda is not pure. You might not have fear around it anymore, but now your agenda is not pure. Now you want something out of it. We have to be very honest with what we want out of something. We have to really look at our agenda and be able to say, what the hell is my agenda here? Why do I want this so much? Why am I putting people on a pedestal in this reality? Are we promising stuff we can't deliver? That's a big one when we do when we do any type of consciousness assistance, we can't promise anything. When I see people promising certain things, it's got such a human spin on it because it's, oh, you can do this, help here and help here and help here. I'll change your world. It's the most important thing you're ever going to hear. Bullshit. No, it's not. It's not the most important thing I'm ever going to hear. It might be very interesting in the moment, but I'll guarantee you it's not the most important thing I'm ever going to hear. Because you can't promise anything. Because if people are not in a certain frequency, they're not going to get anything out of it. Technically. I mean, energetically, it will unravel stuff in their body. But for them to see an outside mirror of what they feel like they want, because a lot of times people will get into this and go, okay, I want to have this outcome, but it's a human outcome they want because that's what their human would say. That's what you're supposed to have, right? Your human version of heaven might be, I want this big house or I want this job. Well, when you start working with something and you start working with consciousness and you start expanding your consciousness, maybe you're getting energy work done, maybe you're working with someone like me, it doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, maybe the next week, your whole world starts to collapse. And you're like, what the fuck is this? This is not what I wanted. Because consciousness doesn't care about your human. Your soul doesn't care about your human life. Your soul does not want the human things that, it doesn't mean you won't have them. You have them in a different frequency and you have a different feeling about why you have them. You understand why you have them and they're not for the human reasons why you want them. So when we talk about our agenda, and it's all backwards. People can say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do all these things, but then when, cat just knocked something over. I'll get that later. You want all this stuff, but we don't want it from a pure place. That's why when we get it, shit doesn't work out the way I thought it was going to be because the frequency's wrong. That's why we have to really practice the art of restraint. And I am going to open up my chat. Give me like one more minute to finish this point and then I'll open up my chat. Why we have to practice the art of restraint by not trying to pull this stuff in that is not aligned yet. And I had that this week when I had the opportunity to do something and every answer I got was no. But I wanted it really bad. My human wanted it really bad, but I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it because it's not aligned. And it might be aligned next week. It might be aligned 4 months from now. It might never be aligned. But it's not aligned right now. And the reality is not going to be what you think it's going to be. Because the frequency is not where it needs to be to get the outcome you want. And that's where we kind of get tripped up. So, okay. I'm going to open this up. Okay. I don't have any questions, so I think we're good. Nothing that seems to be okay. All right. So I will take another question if I have any more questions related to what we were talking about or anything else. I do want to bring in, because I did hear this discussion on dreams this week, I always try to throw in the dream stuff when I can. And people always want to take dreams. And this was a dream, very common dream, about you're in school, you didn't do your paper, you don't know where you're supposed to go, you don't know your classes, you didn't study for the test, you missed the whole semester, and then you show up. It's a very common dream, right? But our human has this dream. And the first thing our human wants to do is take our human reality on it and say, oh, it's because I'm so traumatized from high school. And it's always funny because I used to do the same thing. I used to have this dream. That dream has nothing to do with high school. You know, that dream, your soul, dreams are activities of the soul, okay? They have nothing to do with human life. Now, that is kind of, I'm going to have to put a little bow around that, but dreams, when you're in a human consciousness and you're dreaming, yes, you don't have the sight you have. You still have more sight when you're dreaming than you do when you're awake. You still are precognitive. You still see different realities. You know, you're still getting messages. All that stuff is still true. Though your dream world does enhance the more conscious you become in your waking state and work on your dream space. Okay, you're going to see more. So when I say that what you're seeing is not what you think you're seeing. If you take it from a human perspective, that's exactly what it's going to be, because that's all you're going to relate it to. Okay, you're going to say, okay, not just because I'm upset about high school or whatever. And that's going to become your truth, because that's what you're saying it is about. But the dreams are activities of the soul. Okay, I had a dream teacher say that to me, and it's very true. I think that was Robert Moss. I read a lot of his dream books back years ago. Dreams are activities of the soul. Okay? They don't give a shit about your human life. They don't give a shit about any of it. They don't give a shit about any of the ones you're doing. It's trying to show you something else. So anytime, when I would have this dream, it took me many years to realize this dream was not about human stuff. It was about soul stuff. I was late from a soul perspective. I was not doing something I knew I had to do. I was putting something off I had to go do. And it might not be a human thing you're putting off. It might be something else. It's going to be something else. Something else you can't see yet. That's why you're having the dream. We have to go through, you're going to have a lot of dreams about school when you're going through ascension. Because every little part you get to is almost like a graduation. You're in a different frequency. Every time you're in a different frequency, you graduate to something else. When I'm having a dream that I'm behind and I wasn't where I was supposed to be, it meant I wasn't clearing what I needed to clear. I wasn't getting to the next place, which means if I didn't get there quick enough, the whole reality is going to fall down around me because I'm procrastinating. I'm procrastinating from a human aspect, but on soul stuff. There's stuff I know I need to do that I'm not going to do or wasn't doing at the time. You know, stuff I knew I had to do, but I don't want to do it. I might know, gee, I really probably need to sell my house, but I don't want to do that. But I'm not going to look at that dream about high school and say it has to do with selling my house. Because it even goes deeper than that. All these realities are happening. You know, if you wake up in a cold sweat over a dream, the feelings of the dream are what matters. So much the pictures don't. It's how you feel about it. If you keep repeating the same dream, look at it. You're trying to tell yourself something. And you don't want to be at the other end of not listening to that. If you had something repeat for you 4 times in a day, you'd pay attention to it. I had a friend that would always do the rule of 3. If she heard something 3 times, she knew it was for her. Make up your own rules. It's your game. It's your matrix. Make up your own rules. Go ahead and say, hey, let me just throw out that. If I hear something 3 times, I know it's for me. If I hear this song on the radio, I know it, that's for me. It's trying to show me something. It's trying to tell me something. You have to make up your own rules. And your universe will follow them, in a sense, if you make up your own codes. Because you've already made up your codes. You're just really remembering the codes you already made up to start to unravel it, right? So if we just take that dream about high school, technically, in a multidimensional world, yeah, somewhere in your field, you're experiencing this. but it's always trying to clue you in on a bigger thing. And unless you become in a dream an expert in that world, where you can start to decipher, and this comes when you have raised your consciousness to a point where you can start to decipher what you're seeing and why you're seeing it. And even then, you have to decide if it's something you need to pay attention to, or am I just clearing a reality? At a certain consciousness yet, you're not clearing a reality. When you're in a certain place, you're not able to really clear other realities yet. That happens when you get to another level of consciousness where you're able to do that. In the beginning, our dreams are showing us stuff. That's why I say everything's precognitive. But the part about the dreamer where people disconnect is it's a latency on it. Yes, it can happen the next day. Normally there's a latency, right? I've had dreams about things that happen 2 or 3 years later because you get to the site where you can see that far out. When you're still operating from a human consciousness, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of your sleep state clearing human stuff to get to the other stuff, in a sense. But the message is still important. You're still looking into other dimensions. You might not be able to go 5 years out, or even what might take 5 years, frequency-wise, because you're not able to see. You don't have the consciousness yet, even when you're sleeping, to see that far out yet. That comes from continuing to expand and raise your consciousness. That is not an overnight thing. Some people are more prolific dreamers than others in the beginning. I was always a pretty prolific dreamer anyway. So I was kind of interested in that space. And what I have found is dreams are kind of a key code. Even I've seen Reiki as a key code. You know, and when I say that, it opens people up. It unravels something on their higher consciousness DNA and unravels their part of a remembrance for them. Dreams are the same way. When people want to talk about their dreams, everyone wants to do it, but no one feels comfortable doing it. And they want to dismiss it away. Like, oh, it was just a dream. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anything that's upsetting you because you dreamed about it, it matters. It's now your job to find out why. It was my job to find out why am I having that dream? What's going on? And it might be months or years later till I realize what that dream was trying to tell me. It's what we're not doing on a soul level. It's what we're procrastinating. And it might not be a big thing. It might just be a little thing. Maybe there's someone you know you have to go see, and you're putting it off, and it's making you late for your next soul appointment, right? Which you can't be late for, because eventually your whole reality will collapse down around you. Your soul doesn't want to have to go through that, and well, let me put that another way. Your soul doesn't want your human to have to go through that, but it's fine if it does. You know, if that's how it has to be, that's how it has to be. It's kind of like a parent. They'll give you a lot of leash for a while, but if you keep ignoring it, then it's over, in a sense. I mean, tick-tock, the time's up. You got to move. You can't miss your mark. If you're said you're going to be somewhere to assist someone, or they're supposed to assist you, normally it's going to be a mutual assistance in some way, you got to get there. But because these are, in the beginning it feels like metaphors. If people say dreams are metaphors, it feels like that because you don't know the language. Once you learn the language of your dream world, it's not really metaphors anymore. It's pretty clear. That's why some people will ask me, why don't I remember my dreams? You don't remember your dreams because they're a different frequency than where your body sets. That's why when you wake up, you don't remember them, or you start to lose it because your frequency, your body sets in a different place. Technically, that hasn't happened yet because it's in a different frequency. You were able to see it because at night your conscious can go higher. It can raise its frequency outside the body. It's not confined by the frequency of the body. That's why the dream space is so important. It's not confined with that. Now, remember, the dream world is your most important place. It should never be ignored. But because your human's going to want to try to paint a diagram picture on it, that's where you lose the connection to it. Like, if I checked in with this person who keeps having this dream a year from now, and part of their reality starts to collapse, I would go back and say, okay, it's because you didn't do what you needed to do back here. And it can be a simple thing, right? Let's say this person travels a lot, and all of a sudden, they know they're not supposed to anymore, but they have this human thing, well, I said I was going to keep doing this, so I'm going to keep doing it. But instead of traveling, maybe they're supposed to be doing something else that was going to bring them into their next thing. But instead, they're not going to do that. So all of a sudden, now the universe is going to cut something where, okay, now you can't travel anymore. Because you can't miss your next marker. Your soul plan underneath your human plan is always going to win out. You can divert as much as you want to on your human plan, but it's just a longer way around. You know, you're just kind of in a longer way around. You're just going around the barn to get somewhere. The soul plan will get you in the right direction, and that's what your dreams are trying to show you. So look at where you're dismissing them. Look at where you're having the dream about, oh, I'm not doing something, and ask. Ask the next day, okay, what am I missing? What am I supposed to do? And watch what happens. Watch what comes into your head. Look at different signs around you. Start looking for the answers. Don't just dismiss it as it didn't matter. If someone's willing to talk about it because it upset them so much, it mattered. And you don't want to be caught with your energetic panties down. You just do not want to be caught like that, because when you're caught like that, trust me, it is not going to be something that you're going to enjoy. And we've all been dragged through the mud enough, letting these realities collapse. So I do want to throw that in about dreams, because it is one of my favorite things to talk about. So, okay, I think that's good for today. All right, we're going to sign off, and I will see everyone next time. Bye.